It was a normal fourth-year charms lesson until, after several failed attempts to make their feather fly, Harry and Hermione's frustration boiled over. "Feather no fly!" Harry screamed, his face red with anger. He grabbed the feather off the desk, crumpling it in his tiny fist, and slammed it back down. "Me hate this stupid feather!" His voice rose into a screech, loud enough that even the older students from the other side of the room winced. Hermione wasn't far behind. "Me hate it too!" she screamed at the top of her lungs, throwing her wand down onto the desk and stomping her feet like she was in the middle of the worst tantrum ever. "Feather dumb, magic dumb, everything dumb!" She snatched her feather off the table, tore it in half and threw it onto the floor. Across the room, Ron and Jim exchanged nervous glances. "What's wrong with them?" Jim whispered, looking horrified as Harry stood up on his chair and threw his wand across the room in fury. "They've lost it!" Ron muttered, backing away as Harry hopped off his chair and began running across the room to Dean and Seamus's table. "Me take your feather!" Harry screamed at Seamus, snatching the boy's feather right off his desk. "Your feather dumb too!" He crumpled it in his fist and threw it across the room. "All feathers dumb!" Hermione, not wanting to be outdone, leaped from her chair and ran over to Dean's table. "Me take this!" she shouted, grabbing Dean's feather and tossing it over her shoulder like it was garbage. "No one's feather gets to fly." "Hey, that's mine!" Dean called out. But before he could stop her, Hermione was already onto Ron and Jim's table, grabbing their feathers and throwing them into a growing pile on the floor. Harry, jumping up and down on top of a desk now, was in full meltdown mode. "Me want feather fly. Me want it now." He snatched up several more feathers from other students' tables and scrunched them all into a bundle. "No more feathers! No more magic!" Hermione joined him, jumping onto a desk and bouncing from table to table, knocking over ink pots and spilling parchment everywhere. "Dumb class! Dumb everything!" she yelled, tossing feathers, quills and even books onto the floor in a fit of toddler rage. "Me hate this class! Flitwick make us mad!" "No more magic!" Harry echoed her, stomping his feet so hard that the entire table shook. He threw the entire bundle of feathers toward Flitwick, hitting the poor professor on the head. "Me done with feathers?" The entire class, including the older students, watched in stunned silence as Harry and Hermione continued their rampage, knocking things off tables, jumping from one to the next, and generally causing chaos. Seamus ducked just in time as Hermione tossed a book in his direction. "What is happening?" Jim Potter groaned, shielding his parchment from the chaos as Hermione ran past, knocking over another stack of books. Ron was equally baffled. "It's like they've turned into toddlers or something," he exclaimed as Harry grabbed the ink pot off his desk and hurled it at the wall. Ink splattered everywhere, covering the floor and the nearby tables. By now, Professor Flitwick had had enough. "Mr. Potter! Miss Granger!" he squeaked in disbelief, dodging yet another flying feather. "That's enough! Settle down this instant!" But neither Harry nor Hermione seemed to hear him. Both were too busy stomping, jumping, and throwing anything they could get their hands on in pure toddler rage. Hermione even ripped a piece of parchment in half and tossed it into the air like confetti, giggling as it floated to the ground. "No magic, no more class!" Harry shrieked, his voice hoarse from all the yelling, but still filled with fury. He grabbed the last bundle of feathers and chucked them straight at Flitwick once more, just as Hermione knocked over yet another chair in frustration. The class was in complete chaos. Students were scrambling to protect their things as Harry and Hermione tore through the room like tiny whirlwinds of destruction, feathers flying everywhere, books scattered across the floor and ink dripping down the walls. At this point, even the older students like Ron, Jim, Dean and Seamus had given up trying to understand what was going on and were instead just watching in disbelief as the two tiny terrors rampaged through the classroom.